And tonight, what we've all come for is our presentation with Griffin about the designing behaviors of BJ Fogg model. So I will hand it over to you and stop sharing. Welcome, John.
Awesome. Guys, I'm really excited to be able to share with you tonight. And thank you all for coming. I know that, we've all got day jobs, and so the fact that you would choose to spend some time here tonight is really great. I just wanted to introduce myself really quickly. My name's John Griffin, but everybody just calls me Griff. I am currently the director of CX design at Blue Cross of North Carolina. I am formerly of First Citizens Bank. Shout out to Amy, who's on the phone, and formerly of USAA, and shout out to the several people who I think have circled around USAA that are on the line today. I'm a design generalist and a player coach. I'm also a wearer of jackets, a drinker of whiskey, and a sitter in chairs, as clearly shown by the here. You can find all of my ramblings at thinkgriff.com. I'm also thinkgriff on all of the social medias, so the Twitters and the LinkedIns, etc. Tonight, we're going to talk about designing for behavior change. This is my super fast 1 hour remote edition, so hold on to your hats. I'm going to be talking like a used car salesman. This is normally either a half day, a full day, or a multi-day workshop. So we're not going to get very deep into it tonight, but we're going to hit some high points. We're going to introduce you to what behavior design is if you've never heard of it, and hopefully whet your appetite to go watch some videos online or potentially dig a little deeper. So where does this information come from? I didn't think up any of this. I'm not smart enough to actually come up with it, but I am a pretty good collector and presenter of information. So this actually comes from a guy named BJ Fogg, is where most of this comes from. He's a behavioral scientist at Stanford. He's written several books about tiny habits, and I got to go to a boot camp several years ago with him, and it really changed the way I thought about design, revolutionized it really. And so a lot of what we'll talk about tonight comes from BJ. Also, Dan Ariely, who's the professor of behavioral economics at Duke. He was also the the chief behavioral officer at Lemonade Insurance. So anybody in the insurance industry will know that Lemonade is a very innovative new kind of approach and company when it comes to insurance. And then David Halpern, who's the director of the Nudge Unit in the UK. All of these guys are great. You should read up on them. And so we're just going to start with what is behavior design. So behavior design is an understanding of how people think and how they make decisions for the purpose of affecting some change in their behavior. So, behavior design can be applied to ourselves. Behavior design can be applied to our customers. It can be applied to the people in our family. It basically is about human psychology and an understanding of what make people tick. A lot of times we think that people are very rational and they make rational decisions. So I come from a banking and insurance background. So people make super intelligent, rational decisions around their money, right? Who agrees with that?
No.
They do not, do they? Somebody has a bad day and they decide that they're going to buy a mixer, so it's a very irrational type of an approach, but that's humans, right? So behavior design is all about understanding humans. What are some examples? So we all work probably for some sort of a company. What are the examples of behaviors that your company or that you at your company want your customers to start or stop doing? Everybody just blurt it out.
Stop using paper for their billing.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Go to e-statements instead of having their bills sent on paper.
Absolutely. We want to email them instead of mail them. What else?
Form fills. We want them to fill out forms.
Fill out the forms. Get all the way through it. Exactly. What else?
Use a chat bot instead of calling in.
Use the chat bot instead of calling in, right? What else?
Buy more stuff.
Buy more stuff. Exactly. We all have these goals, these behaviors that we want people to do. I work at a health insurance company. We want people to live healthier lifestyles so that they don't have to go to the doctor as much. We want them to do some research before they go to a doctor to make sure that they're not going to somewhere where they're going to get raked over the coals and pay way more than they have to. So these are the things that we struggle with, and really the idea of design, the idea of creating experiences is often about trying to drive behavior change. How will we get them to do these behaviors? What are some things that you guys have talked about? Hey, we need our customers to do X, so we're going to do this. How do you get people to fill out forms, for example?
Make them shorter, make them easier to fill out. So instead of typing checkboxes, drop downs, something fast.
Make it easier. That's great. What else?
Incentives.
Incentives, right? Give me an example of an incentive.
We'll give you a gift certificate for $5 or put you in a drawing or something if you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are some other ones?
Choosing a simple words. I mean, it's not a jargons and all.
Absolutely. So making it easier to understand. Very good. And those are great answers. We're going to talk about those in a minute because that's actually part of this methodology. How many people have ever had an executive in the room or some other kind of SME in the room say, you know what we really just need is education. We need to educate our customers, educate our members. We just need to help them understand. Has anybody ever experienced that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Here, raise her hand.
That was more.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, guys, I can't see people or the chat or anything, so.
That's okay. Go ahead,
But-
Kira.
Oh, I just raising my hand to say yes, I had experienced that. I think especially my background was more in community work and nonprofits, and a lot of times things are around education versus so even for instance providing like a lot of information on financial literacy instead of maybe doing something that's more activity driven or just something that's more innovative. It's always like just share out a ton of information that doesn't necessarily change behaviors, doesn't necessarily change decision making, doesn't necessarily build partnerships, doesn't really see change sometimes.
I think did you peek at my presentation? And is it Kira or Kara?
Kiara.
Kiara. So Kiara, let me tell you here. Here's the spoiler alert. This never worked, right? Nobody wants to become a expert at life insurance or health insurance or auto insurance or banking or investing. Nobody wants to know how. They don't want an education. They just want the thing that they want. And here's how I know it doesn't work. Financial literacy. So you said the magic words. In 2017, researchers found they did a meta study, which is basically they used math to push together 300 different studies over the last 150 years. And what they found was financial literacy doesn't change people's behaviors at all. It doesn't change outcomes. there was only a 0.1% change from people who knew the right thing to do to people who had no clue in their actual financial outcomes. So this was one of the really dramatic things that changed my thinking after I'd gone through this workshop is getting people to be educated. That's not the answer. So why are we talking about behavior design if there's no shortcut to, you know, just we're going to educate them, we're going to tell them some things, and then they're going to want to do everything we want them to do? Can anybody think of success stories around behavior design in our society? Have we ever changed people's behavior on a wholesale scale?
Yes, we've changed behavior. Well, wait a minute, that might be a law change because you change the law, people start wearing seatbelts, most people.
Yeah.
But I guess if
Yeah.
you change the design on the inside of a car, then an example would be
Yes.
people start changing the way they interact with their vehicles based upon how we tweak how those interfaces are designed.
That's a perfect example. So there's two big success stories here: smoking and seatbelts. So let's think about those two. How were those so successful? I mean, it used to be, I used to work at USAA, and you would walk through the building and they had pictures of people in the 70s in the offices, literally just smoking, ashtray on the side of the desk in their photos. They were taking a photo of hey, let's come take a group shot, and literally people just smoking, right? Dramatically changed. Back in the day, we had a lot of people dying in car crashes, and we changed that. How did we do it? So it was education, right? We provided some compelling information and data. We motivated people to do a behavior or stop a behavior, right? No, we didn't do any of those things. Here's what we did that worked: social pressure. We created this thing called secondhand smoke, and it became very bad to smoke around other people. It was not just hurting you, you were hurting society. There were fines, taxes, fees, higher health premiums. We hit you in the pocketbook. We made it the default. So anybody remember automatic seatbelts where you would get in the car and it would go, we badgered and annoyed people. Like when you get in the car and you don't put your seatbelt on, it beeps at you. So these are the type of things that we can do to change people's behaviors. So let's talk about a behavior now. So let's think about the behavior of not answering a cell phone. Okay, so your phone rings, but you don't answer it. Why not? There's only two reasons that you don't answer your cell phone. Who can guess them?
I would
Spam or
say you're
scam.
either-
Spam
No.
call or you're in a meeting.
Exactly. You're either
Spam.
busy or you don't want to talk to that person.
Yeah, I would say maybe
Yeah.
you don't like that person. It's not a good conversation you're gonna have.
Yes.
Absolutely. So the first thing, and probably the one that we come across the most, is a lack of motivation, right? You see who's calling and you're like, yeah, I don't think so. The other thing is a lack of ability. So maybe I'm in the shower, or maybe I'm on another call, or maybe I can't get to my phone in time. I just can't do it. So these are the two reasons that a behavior will or will not happen. What that means, if we're going to put that in the context of behavior design and the way that BJ Fogg thinks about behaviors, a behavior happens when a person in a context performs an action. And that context is a place and time. So let's think about when you get a call and you're driving. Does that maybe happen differently than if you're sitting on the couch at home? You're the same person, it's the same action, but when you're driving, you may decide not to answer the call. You're at home, sitting on the couch, you decide, oh yeah, this is a good time for me to talk. So you may answer the phone, right? So behavior is all about a person in a place and time performing an action. So 3 things have to come together in the same moment for a behavior to happen. Motivation, you have to want to do it. You have to have the ability to do it. Who can tell me what the third element? There's another key element for a behavior to happen.
Your mood.
What's that?
Mood. I mean, like if you're happy, you can pick it.
Yeah, your mood. So I think that's kind of like motivation. I'd group that under motivation. What else?
A benefit?
Mm-hmm.
Benefit. I think that also keys into motivation. Think about the phone itself. What is the thing that has, so I may be motivated to answer the phone. I may have the ability to answer the phone, but what also has to happen before I know to answer a phone?
The trigger.
The trigger.
Perception?
It has to ring.
Perception?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think perception is also like motivation. The third thing you need is a trigger. If I walk around just randomly picking my phone up saying, is anybody here? You're going to think I'm crazy. So you need that trigger, right? And so the trigger is the phone ring. So when we think about these things, behavior equals motivation plus ability plus that trigger. When all 3 of those things line up at a moment in time, people will do a behavior. So this is what's called the BJ Fogg behavioral model. I'm going to walk you through it. We can map it like this. On one axis, motivation. Motivation can be high or low. On the other axis, ability. Something can be hard to do or it can be easy to do. This is not an either or. This is on a spectrum, right? Some things are harder to do than others. Some things you are more motivated to do than others. Or at any moment in time, you may have more or less motivation. There's this thing called the action line that basically says, hey, if things map to this side of the action line, if people have enough motivation and ability to do a thing, the trigger is going to succeed. We're going to trigger the thing. We call your phone, you answer the phone. Down here, below the action line, triggers fail. So this is where you either don't have the ability or the motivation or a combination of both of those, and the trigger fails. So here you get the call and you do not answer. So let's think this through with this example. So let's pretend that you get a text and it says that you can adopt a puppy for just $5 by replying Y to the email. And this is not you having to adopt the puppy. This is like, hey, give us $5 and we'll find a home for this puppy. Now, I love puppies. Who don't love puppies, right? I'm not a sociopath. So this is easy to do. You've made it very easy. I just reply Y to an email or to a text message. And I'm highly motivated to do it. I like dogs. It's $5, easy, bam, that's going to happen. Example 2, I get a text that says, hey, I can help adopt a puppy for just $500. Just reply Y. Well, you know, now you've made it very hard. I'm highly motivated. I mean, I want to help. I like puppies. However, $500, that's a lot of money. I don't know if I have that, you know, to blow right now. So even though I'm highly motivated, that trigger is probably going to fail because it's very hard to do. Example 3, I get a text that says I can adopt a puppy for just $5 by hitting yes to the email, and I still have puppies, but I just had to pay $5,000 to the vet for an operation for my dog. So probably not now. Now's not a good time. Do I hate puppies? No, but at this moment in time, I am not motivated to do this. So this trigger will fail. And then, of course, the perfect storm, I get asked for $500 and I just had to pay the $5,000. So that falls under hell no space, right? Definitely not going to happen. Way below the action line. So BJ used to call these, I think he's changed his vernacular, but I stick with the old stuff because it's how I learned it. He calls these 4 groups fish, frogs, flies, and fleas. Fish are awesome. They're ready to go. They're motivated and they have the ability to do what you want them to do. All they need is a trigger. Frogs, they really want to do the behavior. They're very frustrated because, man, I want to do it, but you've made it too hard for me to do. Flies, they can absolutely do this behavior all day, but they have no motivation to do it. They're just becoming annoyed that you're even talking to them about it. And then fleas, they don't have the motivation to do either. So here's a question. Let's pretend that you work at a bank. You want your customers to use the chat feature on your app instead of calling or going to a branch. We've done some research and we estimate that the number of customers who fall under these buckets, there's probably about 5,000 fish, 10,000 frogs, 750,000 flies, and 1 million fleas. Who should we target and in what order should we go? Who would like to take a swing at that one? Who should we start with?
We should start with the motivated people who consider it easy to do.
Absolutely. Number 1 is our fish. We got to go fish. They already have the motivation and ability. All they need is what?
Opportunity, the trigger.
Trigger.
Trigger. That's it. They need us to make it, give them a great trigger. All right, where should we go next? What group should we now think about?
Frogs.
The fish frogs.
Maybe frogs.
Frogs. That's right. Frogs is next. Why?
Because their motivation is high.
Motivation is high. And what do we need to do to get a frog to take action?
Make it less difficult for them.
Make it less difficult, right? We make it easier. And now all of a sudden we got more fish. We can turn frogs into fish by making it easier. Then where should we go? This is where I'm about to blow your minds.
Not the fleas.
I'll tell you, we go nowhere. We don't build for flies or fleas. But Griff, there's 1,750,000 people that we're leaving on the table. Here's the good news. This is not demographics from marketing. This is not 18 to 24-year-olds. 18 to 24-year-olds are that until they're 25 years old, right? These people move around. Motivation changes over time. What is easy to you changes over time. This is the revolutionary thing that I learned from BJ Fogg, is this thing right here. Don't design things for people who don't have the motivation or ability to use them. They're not going to use them anyway. Trying to bend over backwards and take and bastardize the good design that you can do for somebody who's already motivated and has the ability, you're going to add all this extra crap that's going to make it harder for them. Don't do that. Don't worry about building for those people. Just wait for them to change where they're at in terms of their motivation and ability. So mind blown. This is why I teach these courses now, is because that has saved me so much time in requirements meetings by, just raising my hand and saying, hey, why are we designing for people who clearly don't have the motivation to use our app? Nobody wants this thing that we're building. Or, hey, it'd be great if the people that we're designing for had the ability to do this, but I think it's clear that they don't. So how can we make this easier? So I'm going to flash this. We don't have time to talk about it, but behavior design is basically taking this approach and saying, hey, how can we apply this thinking to new behaviors, familiar behaviors, one-time behaviors, behaviors that we want to happen over time? How can we do it with behaviors that are that you've seen before, some that you haven't? How can we use it to get people to start a behavior or stop a behavior or increase or decrease it. So it's a really powerful way to begin to look at how to help people change the way they think about things. So let's talk motivation for a minute. What motivates us? Well, all sorts of things. There are like these core motivators, like pleasure and pain, hope and fear, acceptance or rejection. There's this takes all sorts of forms. So maybe it's a sense of accomplishment or meeting. Maybe it's a sense of progress. Maybe it's competition. Maybe it's joy. Maybe it's attention or respect or comfort or security or money or social standing. There's all sorts of things that motivate us. And it's different for each one of us. And the other thing is it's variable. How many people have started a diet in the morning and you're super motivated, and by dinner time, you're much less motivated? Has anybody experienced that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Every day.
Indeed.
Absolutely. It's variable. It's other times, sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. Sometimes you can predict it. It's possible, but it's very hard. So there are some predictable moments in times, like if you have a birthday or your paycheck, when you turn 50 or some big number, when you have a baby. Sometimes it's group-based, like New Year's or paying taxes. Some of those are predictable, and then others are not predictable. So sometimes, if you get sick, that changes your behavior. If you're in a fender bender, or if you lock your keys in the car, sometimes it's really bad, like a heart attack. This is very unusual. You don't know what to do. You didn't predict it. But man, changing behavior is about to follow, right? So the thing about motivation is when people are not motivated, when the motivation is low, they can't do many things, right? They can only do really easy things. At points of high motivation, you can do hard things. And so it's important to know as we design things, hey, how can we have a trigger for someone who is highly motivated? Because at points of high motivation, people can do big things. But also we probably need a trigger for people who have low motivation. What can we do to ease them in? So thinking about runners, at a point of low motivation, I might give you a link to design your shoe. You don't have to buy your shoe. We're just going to design it. Super fun, creative, get you excited about running, design your shoe, right? At points of high motivation, you're going to hire a running coach, right? You're going to hire a trainer. Those are two very different types of behaviors. As we design experiences, we should make sure that we have a spectrum, that we've designed for a spectrum of motivation. We can't have everything be super hard, because then the people who are not motivated just go away. And we can't have a situation where everything is super easy, because then those people at points of high motivation, they want to do big things if they're highly motivated. So it's important to make sure that as you're designing experiences, that you account for people at all levels of motivation. At points of high motivation, you can help people structure future action, that's the gold mine of behavior design. If you can get somebody to say, hey, I will pay for coaching, or I will pay for someone to call me once a week and make sure I'm doing this thing, accountability, that really helps change behavior. At points of low motivation, just help them find a little win. Lots of little wins stacked on top of each other adds up to things called a springboard moment, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So the other example here is sometimes you can find another motivation to attach to, and we'll talk about that as well. So let's think about aspirations and behaviors. There are things called aspirations or outcomes, and a lot of times we confuse those with behaviors. So let's think about some of these things. You guys tell me if these are aspirations or behaviors. Losing weight, saving money, planning for retirement, driving safely. Are those aspirations or behaviors?
Aspirations.
Aspirations, exactly. Those are aspirations. Let me give you some behaviors that pair with those. So if I want to lose weight, I can stop drinking soda, or I can walk 30 minutes a day. I can do yoga, I can lift weights, or about 1,000 other things, right? If I want to save money, I can stop going out to eat, get a second job, plan shopping trips. If I want to plan for retirement, I can talk to an advisor, write out a plan, use a retirement calculator. If I want to drive safely, I can put my phone in the glove box. I can not eat while driving. There was a guy the other day on the road he was going to town on some Jack in the Box. Very, very scary. And don't put on mascara. I've, not to call anybody out, but I've seen that too. Jake, you got to stop it. This idea of how aspirations relate to behaviors, it works like this. We have an aspiration, and a lot of times we're not successful getting to that aspiration because we don't break it down to the next level and ask ourselves, what are the behaviors that will get me there? If I just say, I want to save money, and I don't really think about the behaviors that I'm going to begin to do to get there, I will never save money. I'll just get super frustrated. I'll be spinning. I'll be depressed. That's why a lot of people have trouble making progress, changing their behaviors, is because they don't define them well. Or they think, they get keyed in and they're like, if I want to save money, I have to do this one thing. The reality is that if I want to lose weight, for example, there's all sorts of things I can do. I can stop eating sugar altogether, or I can only eat sugar 1 day per week, or I can do intermittent fasting, run a marathon, drink a gallon of water. I could start doing meth. I could do 100 push-ups for a day, per day for a month. I could give up alcohol, only have 1 beer a week, just dial it back. Hire a personal trainer, walk 30 minutes per day, go on any of the many diets that are out there, lift weights 3 times per week, commit to my kids that I will lose weight and be healthier for them, close the rings on my Apple Watch, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we brainstormed this, we could come up with 1 million of these ideas, right? Here's the problem. Different people are going to connect to different behaviors in different ways. So we've got 4 different people down here. Person 1 here over on the left, he can do 100 push-ups a day and drink a gallon of water, no problem. But give up alcohol, no way. Same thing with our second person there. She'll give up alcohol and maybe even hire a personal trainer. Our third person, she'll walk 30 minutes, vegan diet, ride her bike. And the third guy over here is going to stop eating sugar, close his rings, and stop doing meth or start doing meth, right? And so this is called the matching problem. So the real key is finding the things that work for us. And if they don't work, not feeling bad about it, not digging in and trying to, double down, just try something else. If we do any 2 or 3 of these things, it's going to get us to our goal. And so this is another key aspect of behavior design, is helping people understand and connect with the behaviors that will get them to what their aspiration is. Part of the problem with how we market and how we do experience design is we never ask people what their aspirations are. We assign people their aspirations. We say, hey, you should want to save money. But what if people don't want to save money? So, this is the other thing that I learned is this is why user-centered design is so important. Whoever your customers are, you need to go to them, and you don't need to just ask them, hey, how can I make you do the crap that we want you to do? What you do is you say, tell me about the type of person you aspire to become. What are your aspirations? What are your goals? What are the things that you're working towards? And then go brainstorm behaviors that would help them get to where they want to be. Create a trigger around the behavior to get them to their aspiration. And now you've got a winning formula. That's when people really begin to interact, and you're not twisting arms anymore. So let me give you an example of this idea of assigning motivation. So This was from my sketch notes at the BJ Fogg conference. I apologize, I'm a terrible sketch artist. But there was a friend of theirs, and I'm going to call her Mary. She likes to walk, but she doesn't like to walk, and her health is really suffering. She had diabetes, and the doctors told her, hey, Mary, if you don't start walking, we're going to have to cut your feet off. So you should want to be healthy. That was the assigned, outcome. You should want to be healthy. It wasn't working. Mary was not walking. So option one was give Mary information on how walking, it can be fun. Walking trails that are near you. Here's some walking trails. Here's some warnings about inactivity. We're going to cut your feet off if it's going to be bad. None of that worked. So BJ, being a behavior design guy, noticed that every time Mary came to his house, she would sit on his couch and call the dog over. Loved this little dog, and we'll call the dog Baxter. And I'm pretty sure I stole that name from Anchorman. But because Mary liked Baxter, BJ said, hey, Mary, we really need somebody to walk Baxter. They've told us he needs to walk for 20 minutes a day. Do you know anybody that would be willing to do that? And she said, you know what? I'll do that all day. I love Baxter. I will take him for a walk. So the assigning her the outcome or the aspiration to be healthy wasn't working, but assigning her the aspiration of take care of Baxter, and then you got her to do the behavior. So this is where the moral of this story is you don't have to change people's minds to change their behavior. This was another revolutionary thing to me. What you do is you root your design, you root your experience in what is important to people, and then you build around that, and you've got a successful recipe. So I'm going to pause. I see 35 comments in the chat. Is there any questions up to this point? I know we've only got about 10 minutes left, but I want to give people a chance to ask questions.
Just raise your hand or just talk if you want to ask a question or if you have any comments. I think most of the information in the chat is just Paula taking notes and people responding to your comments.
We'll keep pressing through them. So let's talk about increasing ability. So we talked about motivation. Now let's talk about ability, another really key factor. There are strategies that you can use to simplify. So remember that a behavior is when a person in a context performs an action. You can simplify any one of those things. So if we want to simplify when it comes to the person, we can train that person to increase their skill. That will make things easier for them, right? And when they know what they're doing a little bit, then their motivation probably goes up as well. We can adjust the context, so we can give people a tool or a resource that they can use. So maybe it's a calculator. Maybe if they're making a decision, you can, instead of just showing them all the information, you can show them example scenarios that they could read through, right? We can also adjust the action. We can scale it back so it's simpler. We can maybe do tiny versions or starter steps. So these are all the strategies to simplify. There are 5 factors. You can simplify any of these things or use any of these things to simplify. First one is time. If something takes less time, it is simpler. If something takes less money, it is simpler. If something takes less physical effort or mental effort or cognitive load, that's you're simplifying. So that's to what we were talking about earlier. I forget who mentioned it, but if you can make something simpler to understand, then you've made it more likely that people will do the behavior. And then the other thing is tying it to a routine or understanding that people already have a routine and finding a way to break routine, right? So there are certain things, for example, if you want to start running, one of the most powerful things you can do is in the evening, say you want to start running every morning. In the evening before you go to bed, you stage your shoes and your socks and your running shorts and your shirt right by your toothbrush. You know you're going to go to the toothbrush first thing in the morning. Just make that part of your toothbrushing routine. Is at the end of toothbrushing, I'm going to put on my shoes, I'm going to put on my running clothes, and you're that much closer to going running. So tying it to a routine, or understanding that sometimes you have to break people's routine if you want to do if you want them to do behavior. That's really, really difficult, but can be done. So
I have a
there's a
question.
lot more. Yes.
Just briefly, I noticed that you put the cognitive stuff at the end, like time, money, and physical effort. Oh, boom, boom, boom. And
Yep.
then towards the end, cognitive load and routine.
Mhm.
Is that in order of ease or?
No, these are in no particular order. These are just
Okay.
all the different things you can pull on. I do think that, so when I did this, I worked at a bank. And so I think
Mhm.
time and money were top of mind at a bank. But I think when it comes to health, now, if I were to do this from a health perspective, health insurance, I would say probably cognitive load is probably the biggest thing that we can improve. And then money and time and,
Okay.
but yeah, that's no particular order.
All right. Thanks.
So there's so much more to talk about there, but we, got limited time tonight. So I'm going to push on to this thing called creating success momentum. So little wins can lead to springboard moments. So the reality is there's a lot of people, some people that come to us are going to be highly motivated. For those people, we should have big things for them to do. But most people aren't going to be, and they need some little wins. But if we string enough of those together, they move on the BJ scale from down here where they have, they have, it's really, really easy, and they have a little bit of motivation. So they do it, and then they do it, and then they do it, and then they do it. And then one day there's this big springboard moment. So for example, maybe I decide I want to start lifting weights. I start lifting 10 pounds. Yeah, I do it. I'm pretty motivated. It's fairly easy. It's only 10 pounds. Well, I do that for 3 days. Now I'm feeling pretty good. And I'm starting to, I've got 3 little wins. And then that next week I start and I'm like, okay, let's go to 12 pounds. Well, it's a little bit harder, but I'm a little bit more motivated now because I've done it for a week. It's starting to get easier, starting to feel better. So I do that 5 days that next week. Man, now I'm really rolling. The next week I move up to a 15-pound weight, and I do that 6 days in a week. And man, if I do that for long enough, I'm going to hit a springboard moment where I say, you know what? I'm a person who lifts weights. I need to hire a trainer. The idea of how I think of myself changes, and I'm ready to do a hard thing now. And so I want to share with you my springboard moment. Yes, I used to have hair. This was me back I was a senior in high school here. And I started karate when I was 14 years old, which that's not a great look. Not a great look. But I had some success. Because I was so old, just started karate, I had to fight, purple belts and brown belts and black belts way above my level. I was still a white belt. And I had these little wins and little wins and little wins, and I was getting stronger and stronger, and I was figuring out how to really spar well. And then I had my first mini springboard moment where I said, you know what? I'm going to go to a city tournament, San Antonio, Tire City, hundreds of people competing. In my bracket, there were like 43 people competing. And so you competed in form or kata and sparring. I won dead last in kata because I was terrible at karate, but I won first place, and I got a giant trophy in sparring because I didn't know karate, and so I just beat the hell out of everybody. Man, I felt great. I did that on Saturday, and on Monday I had my springboard moment. Let me tell you what this is my big springboard moment. There was a girl in my chemistry class. We had chemistry together, and she had been sitting in front of me for the entire year. I was super scared, super inward and afraid to talk to her. But man, I just won a karate tournament. I can do anything. So that Monday, I gave her a note. I passed her a note and said, "Hey, I really think I really like you. I really think that we'd have a good time if we'd go to the movie. You want to go to the movie with me this weekend?" She and then I assigned it John, which was probably a bad idea because there were like 3 Johns in the class, and so she had to spend a couple of days figuring out which John was asking her. But that was my big springboard moment. Would have never done anything like that before these series of little wins, and then this one slightly bigger win. And the reason that I tell you this story and the reason that it's so special to me is that's my wife. I've known her since 10th grade when we were in biology together. And this is how I know the power of behavior design and small wins firsthand. So that is my presentation. And I will pause and I guess stop sharing. If I can figure out that.
Wow, thank you so much. That was really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
Awesome.
learned a lot. Absolutely.
That's awesome. And one thing I'll just also pitch here, guys, and I'm going to share my screen one more second, is this is, man, just really scraping the tip of the iceberg. So I do have on my website, if you go to thinkgriff.com/I-1-behavior design, with all dashes there, you can sign up and tell me that you're interested in doing the full training. I'll be honest, I haven't done the full training in about 1.5 years or 2 years. But I'd be willing to do it again if there was enough interest. The dollar amounts that you see down here, don't worry about that. You would get a huge discount for being a UXSA member. I just want to gauge interest. So if you feel like you would like either half day or a full day or whatever, deep dive into this, feel free to go to my website and tell me that. I'm not going to sell your information or anything. This is really just for me to know if, hey, maybe let's do a longer workshop and we can invite everybody.
Great. Well, thanks so much. And thanks for the discount for the UXSA members.